Hello, Dr. V. It has been a pleasure being in your class this year, and this is my presentation and final video essay. The sociological imagination is the ability to see how personal experiences and problems are connected to the combination of biography, history, culture, and the social institutions and structures that shape the world around them, rather than just being a personal issue. Socialization is one's upbringing. Some specific socialization agents are the place that I've grown up. Specifically, the place that I've grown up has been pretty suburban and away from rambunctious cities where there are a lot more people and issues. Also, my dad's very political and he's just expressive and voicing his opinions and beliefs, which seeps into my own ideals for sure. He's very blunt and unforgiving, which can inhibit my empathy towards the issues of others by discrediting the problem. Some examples of where I've improved are simply seeing various perspectives on different topics throughout the course, which help broaden my views and challenge some of the narrow mindedness, seeing struggles of other people helping me to get out of my bubble of good, seeing the discrimination and injustices in the world help me to see that people are passionate about things and willing to fight for what they think is right, and what will increase their quality of life, even though I would never really interact with the problems they're having. This helps me to understand that although our country is amazing, there is discrepancies, and the way of the US isn't the only correct way to live. One topic that really helped me see this was deviance. One thing that stood out to me about this topic was the idea that deviance doesn't have to be breaking the law and that culture or elites are defining deviant behavior. This really opened my eyes up to the fact that people can be doing things that are normal for themselves, their family, or their culture, but people from another place can deem this behavior as abnormal and put it to an end. Another topic that really stood out to me was the race and ethnicity lectures. Since there are so many paradoxical beliefs, people were using very significant and subjectively beneficial things in order to justify horrible behavior. It is very interesting to me to hear about a lot of Christians or use of the Bible to justify slavery or other acts of those measures, or to even keep them from seeing the truth, such as the use of slave Bibles. For me, it brings up a pretty big question of Christianity about what the correct interpretation of the Bible is, since there has been so many interpretations across generations. And even in today's day, I'm sure everyone thinks their interpretation is the correct one and going to lead them to treating others well and pleasing God. But how can one interpretation be so skewed to interpretations today and what we believe is right? Not only that, but interpretations of the Constitution and the law swaying in and out and to discriminate against whoever the elite feel during that time period, such as the example that you brought up about Mexicans being considered black and not black and black and not black, depending on the time period it was. It was crazy for me to hear about the lengths people in power would go to in order to keep the discrimination alive. They will label others informally and formally, such as drapetomania and dysesthesia. There's an obvious power trip, and using powerful things to reinforce your ideas does not make them right. It was eye-opening to see the horrors and helps me to understand the tension in America today. I probably would have used to approach all these topics with a lack of sincerity or importance because I've lived in such a bubble. I obviously knew of injustice and discrimination from school and watching the news, etc., but I've never really delved into it. I know that bad things are happening in the world, but I usually brush them off with the idea that without the news, we would rarely hear anything bad and that the good outweighs the bad because the news only shows the bad. However, now I see the significance of fighting for good, regardless of the abundance. One specific example I can think of is the video about the transgender woman that goes into the doctor's office, and there are two different ways that the health center went about treating her. The reason this sticks out is because I want to work in the healthcare field, and I'm pre-med. I would like to be a pediatrician, and I know there will be instances where I must know how to treat others, regardless of personal belief. Because in the end, I'm there for their health, not for my ego. Another thing that stood out from the health lecture was the proposed situation of the family requesting a white doctor and how the lady handled it. Because again, this will pertain to my field, and I want the health offices to be a place that is welcoming, accessible, and understand how to deal with people that are disillusioned. Cognitive empathy is the ability to take someone else's perspective and relate to the feelings that they are having without necessarily feeling their emotions. Cultural humility is judging others' cultures based on that specific culture's perspective, not our own. Approaching the differences with openness and being open to criticizing ourselves in order to improve. I think overall, I've slightly improved my cognitive empathy. However, empathy, as mentioned before, is a tough thing for me and I often discredit the problems. I think since I've grown up in such a way that fosters my benefits, I haven't experienced any real problems. So when others have something that is detrimental, I can't relate. I think no problem is a big problem, and I attribute their problems to their toughness or victim mentality. This class has definitely helped me to understand that there are big problems in the world, and although they're not pertaining to me, they are a danger to the well being of the world and the people in it. I feel I do a good job spreading joy and being upbeat, but developing the skill set of response in a setting that isn't super upbeat is an area that I need to improve. Especially in conversation with my girlfriend, I'm able to practice this cognitive empathy. Her health is a constant struggle for her, and her days are exhausting, so being able to help her, but more importantly, understand that I do not need to solve anything, I just need to listen and build her up, is the most pertaining example of cognitive empathy in my life right now. She is very emotional and feels for a lot of things, so it is helping to me to understand that I can feel too. Navigating her thoughts and feelings with her helps me to gain a different perspective on the things that I would normally brush off. Again, in my future workplace, this will be an important skill to understand what my patients feel is important, seeing from their perspective the need for whatever they are coming in for. One lecture that helped me explore cognitive empathy is the Age, Death, and Dying lecture. The reason for this is because ageism is a real thing and discrimination based on age should not happen. In my future workplace, I'm going to be dealing with kids, and I do not want to brush off something that could be extreme simply because they're a child, possibly telling stories or over exaggerating. I want to hear them and understand them in order to give them the best help I can. Also, the idea that you brought up about embracing that we're all going to die, possibly helping us to reduce ageism, was intriguing to me. My grandma just passed, and it was the first funeral I've been to where I was old enough to see and understand everyone's emotions. It was a turning point in my development as it showed me there is real power in death and that everyone copes through divinity. There are so many different emotions going on, and putting myself in the shoes of others really made me feel deeply. As I gave a short speech, I broke down, and I'm not sure if it was out of my own sadness or the overwhelming gravity of the various eyes staring back at me, projecting their hurt onto me. Secondly, my cultural humility is also not the best. I am not an ethnocentrist by any means, but certain cultural norms have definitely appeared weird to me in the past. I'm going to use my girlfriend as another example because she took a gap year and went abroad for 9 months, going to small villages in Cambodia, South Africa, and Thailand, and Guatemala. Her experiences that she shares with me are all peculiar, but the joy and love she has for each is incredible. It has helped me to see the beauty in other cultures and the fact that other people are just as proud of where they come from, so why should I not be proud and understanding for them? One thing that really stands out to me when people show videos of them abroad in small villages or places of poverty is the joy of all the people they interact with. All the children are always dancing and singing, playing soccer, playing games, and all the adults are so grateful. It makes me wonder why people living in better conditions like us aren't showing the same optimistic view of the world. It really exposes the power and money driven culture of the US. Also, being in college and interacting with people from other countries has been a fun experience, especially hearing the things that they think are odd about Americans. It helps me to see that we are just as weird and that the uniqueness isn't a separator, but a uniting force. One lecture that stood out to me about cultural humility was the lecture on global inequality and globalization. The reason this stood out to me was because of the diagram on core, semi-periphery, and periphery countries. I've sort of seen the world in this way before, but to really dive into the interactions that are happening between each level is interesting. Understanding that there is a clear power dynamic in installations to keep one at the top and the other at the bottom is clearly unjust. Although there is a need for cooperation and collectivity on a global scale, the relations should not be abuser and abusee. Also, the Wallerstein idea that the fate of any one nation is tied to the economic dynamic of the overall world is not so far off. However, I think it could go beyond economics. that every nation is crucial and interconnected into the state of the world. This has helped my culture of humility, since my life doesn't go on without the help of other countries, and there must be a more inclusive and equal way to spread wealth and health. Cultural humility will also help me in my future career when giving medical advice, diagnosis, etc., to people that may have various cultural needs or beliefs. Really trying to understand their perspective can help me to provide treatment that works for them and not just for the health industry. Overall, this class was very helpful in expanding my knowledge on injustice throughout the world and seeing various perspectives, as well as points to strive for, improvement in myself that, if done collectively, can change the belief system of the world to a more loving and Christ-like state. Thank you.